annual national event that draws attention to the harms of censorship and celebrates the freedom to read, as noted by ALA. So we'll discuss a variety of programming options, their logistics, successes, and lessons that we've all learned. We will consider the value of banned book programming to the university and the broader community. I myself am a little excited about this conversation because, as I was noting before we went live, we're on the quarter system, which means our first week of classes always falls during banned book week, which means I've never actually had the opportunity to do any banned book week programming. So I'm excited to hear what you all are doing at your locations or your experiences in the past. We'll do a very quick introduction, since there's just the three of us, as to who we are and what we do, where we are. My name's Chris Davidson. I'm the Outreach and Community Services Librarian at Northwestern University. So I do all of the planning for broad student engagement. So I would be doing banned book week programming if I had the chance, if it wasn't, freshman orientation week. And yeah, that's me. Holly, you were here first. Why don't you go next?
I'm Holly Flynn from Michigan State University. I am the outreach librarian, so basically I do very similar things, the programming for Banned Books Week and National Library Week, that sort of thing.
And I'm Amy Wainwright, and I'm the Outreach and Student Engagement Librarian at John Carroll University. And I basically do all of the same kind of programming. And I do have a committee. I know we haven't, I'm sure maybe the two of you also work with committees too, or have other people to help, but at least it's not just me.
Yeah, we do try and events like that, we do try and work with like a planning group, not an official committee. Librarians have all these different levels of organizational structure. We have committees and task forces and planning groups. And where did Stephanie go? She was here just a second ago. Oh. Well, if she comes back, we'll let her introduce herself. So the first question that we were curious about that went out was, what are you doing? What kind of programming do you do in the library for Banned Book Week? Outside of the outside of the library, or do you do any outside of the library? So both in or out.
Holly, do you want to go first, or do you want me to go first?
You can go ahead.
Well, since I'm really new in my position still, I think I can use that excuse for a little bit longer. I've just been in my position for just over a year and a half. I've only been on campus for one Banned Books Week so far. So we did have a fairly successful program, or not a program at all, a display. It was kind of, it was interactive. Basically what we did is we had a list of, I can't remember how many we started. I'm really bad with basketball, but basically we did basketball brackets for kind of the traditional or classically banned books, and then versus newer kind of contemporary banned books. And as each day of the week of banned books progressed, students vote. We had so we had the large bracket, kind of again very what you would normally see in a basketball bracket, and then we had giant pieces of like butcher block paper with the titles of each book on them. So students would walk by and just kind of vote with hash marks with whatever book was their favorite banned book in that given round. And then each morning I would, make kind of a big deal of switching it to the next, whoever advanced to the next round, and I'd post Instagram and kind of all of that stuff to get students to know where we were at, until they voted down to the last book, and it was, why am I blanking on who won? This is terrible, because I'm always bad at names of things. What's wrong with me? What's Go Set a Watchman? Harper Lee's
To Kill a Mockingbird.
Yes, To Kill a Mockingbird. That's what won last year. So the students loved it. So I'm not really sure what we'll follow up with for this year, at least.
Did it come down to Kill a Mockingbird versus Harry Potter?
I don't think so. You know what I should have done, and maybe Holly, while you're talking, I'll pull up some of the pictures and see if we want that kind of information, just so I can see who won or who advanced so far. But it was a good time.
Cool. How did you how did you figure the books that you would use?
For each set of books, so the kind of classic or traditionally banned books, there's lists that break it down according to the two different criteria that I used.
Hmm.
Um, and since we were doing the bracket, do we start with 16 each? We must have started with 16 each. And I think I just basically took, I mean, each list is much longer than 16 banned books, but I think I just pretty much took the first 16 or whatever 16 was kind of most relevant to our students. Like I thought that they most likely had read that kind of thing. Especially with the more contemporary list of banned books, like I think it's titled it's like most banned books or in the U.S. Like I tried to pick some of the fun things that I thought that they might have grown up reading or been required to read in their junior high or high school classes or things like that.
Cool. Holly?
So for the past 3 years, we've done a banned books readout on the library's patio, which kind of coincided with the patio being remodeled, so it's actually nicer out there now. And the first year, we had maybe 20 people come, and then last year, a couple of upper-level English classes came who were studying to be high school English teachers, and I think they got extra credit if they read. So I pick a bunch of banned books and put them on a book truck and wrap it in caution tape and wheel it out there, and everyone takes turns reading from a banned book for 5 minutes. We've invited the public library to participate, and they've never taken us up on it, so it's
Interesting.
mostly just been a campus-wide thing.
Is that, do you think, because they're doing their own programming, or?
I haven't noticed them doing much of anything for it for the past few years. Before that, they were doing sort of those read posters with community members holding up their favorite banned book, but they haven't really done any programming the last couple of years. And we do collaborate with them a lot. I don't know if the banned book readout just falls at a bad time for them, or
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
So I like this because this is interesting. You've got two very different kind of ideas for programming for Banned Book Week. One that's kind of like and both are interactive, but like one is kind of like self-contained, like solo, and the other one is out of the building and interactive and a live engagement. What kind of participation do you get? Have you found in both of them?
I mean, the students, since they were very excited to come by and vote on the brackets. I mean, I had one student one morning when I was switching it out. He actually was basically very upset that whatever he had voted on hadn't advanced to the next round, and I felt a little bit like I had to kind of comfort him to make him know it was okay. But they get excited about that.
And they see the whole bracket, right, in the beginning? Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Holly?
Yeah, having it outside has worked really well because the library is centered in the middle of campus, and so a lot of people pass through the library to get to the other parts of campus. And so we've had a lot of people just walking by, and then they'll stop for a few minutes and watch. So I think, at least for exposure, it's pretty good.
And when in the week do you do it, and for how long?
We do it during lunch. This year it's on Tuesday at Banned Books Week. We've switched that up depending on my schedule usually.
Cool.
Holly, I love that idea. That's actually something, I'm glad you mentioned it, because that's something that I've been interested in trying to do, but I'm worried that I'm too last minute with my planning for this year.
I see Stephanie's joined us, and that she looks like she's getting a set of headphones. And once you get all set up, we'll have you introduce yourself to the rest of the group.
But I really love the idea of the basketball brackets too. I'm at kind of a basketball school, so I think I may have.
You are at a basketball school. That would go over like gangbusters.
I know.
Well, that was the thing, though. I was kind of hoping to switch it up this year. I mean, I think it worked great last year, but I was kind of hoping to save the bracket thing for March Madness, doing some kind of display during March Madness. Not that my school is a big basketball school by any means, but I think always trying to look for different ways to interact with the students. So
Cool. Stephanie, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. You're a little
Yay!
quiet, but that's okay. We can manage. Do you want to introduce
I can
yourself?
speak up. I'm Stephanie Race. I'm the head of research and faculty outreach at UNF, and I was going to watch live because I'm facilitating the discussion on Thursday and Friday. But I
I'm
had
glad you joined
questions.
us.
I had questions, so then I joined you live.
Good.
We actually don't have football. We just have basketball. So the March Madness, the bracket thing is interesting to me, and we are doing banned books for the first time. I've only been here for 6 months, so I was pleased when one of you said you've been there a year and a half and you can still be new.
I've been here 15 years. I still feel new sometimes.
Well, they're good.
It's only my second fall semester.
It's only my first. It's been insane. But our basketball team did really well this past year, and so that feels like something we should be playing up. So I'm gonna take that idea to the person who's heading up our band book week display, the activities.
It's a smart way of thinking about engagement, of like knowing what is popular on your campus and then going and utilizing that as an engagement tool. So both you and Holly are real primed for that. That's a great idea. And then at Northwestern, we of course we like our basketball as well. So.
And then I had questions for Holly.
Mm-hmm.
When you did the readout, how did you get volunteers?
We made flyers, and I had on the flyer to contact me if people wanted to read at the readout, and a couple of people did. We had our subject librarians send the flyer to their liaison areas. And then a couple of faculty members from education actually contacted me and asked if they could bring their classes and read for 5 minutes each.
That's
Okay.
cool.
How long did the readout last?
About an hour, just during lunch.
Okay,
Unfortunately, we've had good weather both years.
Because I know we have a readout schedule. This is how uninformed I am. We have one scheduled, but I don't know any details yet.
Oh.
It's not been shared with us. So.
Oh, okay.
But I know I spoke to a YA lit class, and
Mm-hmm.
they were reading Judy Blume and some of that stuff that's on all those lists. And when I mentioned it, they were very interested in
Oh, okay.
participating. So.
Yeah. We've had a couple people from the Department of Theater come too, since it is sort of a public performance. I guess you could think of it that way.
Oh, that's an interesting idea.
I'm a little bit surprised that, because when you originally started talking about it, Holly, I wrote down just an obscure note that says department, but I was thinking of like which departments would want to be involved with something like this, and I'm surprised that your English or creative writing or some whatever program that they wouldn't want to be more involved. I would
Right.
think that.
Yeah, we had a 400 level English class come, but they're the ones who are doing their student teaching and becoming high school English teachers.
Right.
That's about as far as that has gone.
That kind of leads into the other question that we had, which was like, what campus partners have you partnered with? And Holly, you've talked a bit about that. Amy, have you partnered with anybody for yours?
Not at all. Not at all. We have a great relationship with our English department. I'm not the liaison to the English department, but we haven't put together any kind of collaborations at this point for Band Books Week at least.
Mm-hmm. Stephanie, you said that you were doing a reading at your location. Have you done any other programming? I know you said you've only been there 6 months.
Well, I actually just pulled up what it says on our events calendar because it's an interesting relationship I have with the group that's doing this. So I've been quiet. And what it says is we're doing this from 12 noon to 3 p.m. on the first floor. And it looks like it's going to be in front of the library, which we're in Florida and it's hot. So
it is hot in
that's
Florida.
Interesting. I'm be kind of curious. But I know part of why we're doing it this year is that the university was approached by the city apparently the city is doing a large event. They're doing citywide events, and so the university was approached. So it's one of those. It's also an event that did not develop within the library.
Mm-hmm.
And what I've noticed since I've been here is those kind of projects, people aren't as excited about them. Whereas this is something I've been really excited about. I was working at a public library last year, and we really wanted to do a readout until it was a very small conservative county, and it became an issue about banning books.
God.
Oh, no.
We made some decisions about why we weren't going to do that.
You said that the group that was doing it, so what were you referring to that was organizing the readout?
The readout it's being organized here in the library, but it's in conjunction with these larger events that are going on citywide, which I'm going to see if I can find something about, because I know next to nothing about it.
Okay. So how are students and faculty responding to your programming? Do you have you gotten any sort of feedback or feeling on how that's been working?
I haven't, at least. I mean, other than the random comments and little short, brief interactions with students. I guess that's kind of maybe the downfall of doing such passive. I mean, it is interactive, but I don't need to be involved with a display like that all the time. So
It's the upside of something like that.
Yeah. But it means I have no feedback really. I don't have a good sense of how campus in general is responding to any kind of Banned Books Week thing at all. I'm not even sure what they've done in the past before last year. So.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. I've never handed out any surveys or anything. I probably should. Our audience for it has grown a little bit each year, but I don't know.
Do you get live anecdotal feedback at the event, or?
Yeah, and well, last year the student newspaper interviewed me for it, and then they covered the event live, so that helped a little.
And did you see an impact on that on the event? Or so they covered it,
yeah,
so
they
it
covered
didn't
it
come out until afterwards.
Right, exactly.
Gotcha. I guess that leads segues nicely into our next question is the big topic that everybody always wants to know about is assessment of outreach activities. And Holly, you were part of this conversation last quarter, at the end of last year. So it sounds like we're not doing much assessment of our Banned Book Week. So let's think about how we might approach assessing these sorts of activities. What's the way that we might go about getting a little feedback on whether it's having impact or if it's meeting our goals? Quick, on the spot, come up with a good idea. Magic bullet this one.
Well, do any of you, because I'm newly back in the academic world after having done some other things. Do any of you do any kind of like end of year assessment where you ask students if they attended certain activities? You know, like at the end of the semester, do you do any just kind of basic surveying? You know, here's a list of things we did. Which ones did you come to? And then going a little deeper, because you know we're at this point just counting what people have come to, but then going deeper into how did it impact you? I mean, just in some of those basic things.
We don't do anything like that. I mean, for the most part, all of any kind of surveying or feedback that we get happens at each event and is very distinct from each other, especially since a lot of the events and programming that we do in the library isn't necessarily it's not necessarily something the library is paying for or even always very involved with. Occasionally it's other departments that are sponsoring the events and therefore they kind of handle all of, I mean, at most I'll get kind of numbers from whatever the events or programming are, but I rarely will get much assessment from it. And yeah, I have no idea how I would go about assessing any kind of Banned Books Week thing, especially since I kind of want to change tactics completely this year from what I did last year, at least.
it doesn't relate to Banned Books Week in specific, Stephanie, but it does relate to a topic which we'll be having, I think, in November, which is around exam relief. We'll be talking about
Yes.
exam relief. But we haven't done it, but our current plan we came up with over the summer because we've been interested in what is the impact of exam relief, is doing quick surveys the week after they come back, asking them, we just do an iPad survey with a couple quick questions, and the idea is to ask them, like, what exam relief activities do you take part in? It's just some basic questions of, are they taking part of this? Did they enjoy it? What sort of an impact? Did it have the impact that we wanted it to have? I don't know what the exact questions are.
Right.
And like really, literally just a quick, short, here's a piece of candy, take this survey, so we can find out, is this having an effect? And I think it's a sort of assessment of outreach that you can kind of do related to any activity. Like Amy was saying, we do most of our surveying at the event, and we only do that on events where there's a logical reason to collect information. So if we're getting them to register for some prize that we're going to give away, we'll do a little bit of assessment in the middle of there. But if it's like a gaming event or something like that where we're not collecting any data from them for any particular reason, we don't want to burden them with surveys. And I feel like that's one of the big struggles with outreach and assessment, is having this activity and then this assessment piece that doesn't naturally fit with the activity, where you want to collect that sort of data that kind of takes away from the engagement aspect of the activity. So after the fact follow-up is as I think is an interesting way to go. And the upside of that sort of approach is, I think that you get a sense of how many people are, like, in the library. If you're doing the surveys within the library, how many people that are in your space are actually participating in that event. So if you get a lot of people that say, no, I didn't actually participate in your event, then you realize how many people you're losing or not grabbing from your captive audience. That's my 2 cents.
And that sounds very much like the conversations we've been having. Because we did a breakfast the first week, and there was real concern about, like, we just want to hand out donuts, but we wanted to get something from the students. So we actually did, in order to get a donut, you had to do the survey. And we know students walked away.
Right. Holly, how about you? What about assessment ideas for reading out?
Yeah, we haven't done any kind of assessment in the past other than counting the number of people who have shown up. So I think maybe an after-the-fact survey would be a good idea, something like that.
What about, like, following up with the faculty that have been engaged in the event?
That's true. And last year, the one upper-level English class actually requested an instruction session afterward.
Oh.
So
that's impact for sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm curious too, especially with those classes that are education-based. What sort of conversations are they having around banned books that kind of come out of that, or are related to that?
Right. The one had spent the whole week talking about banned books, so that was 1 or 2 class sessions or something, and I think they had a read-in in their class the day before they came to ours.
Cool.
But this year the focus is on young adult books, correct? From what I remember reading.
Sure.
Sure. I probably should have looked that up, but like I said, worst time of the year. So, the other aspect, of course, is marketing promotion. So how have you both been marketing and promoting your banned book activities?
It's mostly social media for me, I would say. I didn't mention this earlier when we were talking about the brackets display. It was in our front lobby too, so it was in a very highly visible space. Everybody coming into the library would see it. But basically, after I created the signage, I think I started both tweeting and posting to Instagram fairly regularly about the display itself and doing very regular updates about kind of where voting was at and who was progressing to the next round and things like that. So I didn't actually do much marketing across campus necessarily or anything like that. It was just social media basically.
We have this lovely flyer that we send all around campus,
nice.
and our subject librarians send it out as well. And so really just that and social media.
Is that, Holly, is that easily coordinated with your subject specialists?
Yeah, more or less me just begging them.
Okay, I think several of us are familiar with that aspect, that strategy.
I discovered if I write the email and send it to them and they only have to just forward it, they'll send it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Another question that was in the list, although nobody's talked about doing any sort of virtual activities or events. So has anybody done any?
Nope.
Okay. So then how might you, Amy, I'm thinking about you're doing social media. Is there a way that might be sort of adapted to an online component?
Wait, hang on. Sorry, everyone. Everything just froze for me. So, Chris, I didn't hear the last part of your question.
Oh, so the question in the brainstorming session was about virtual activities or events, and the bracket thing seems like there's a natural fit for a social media component to it. I'm assuming that you haven't done that because you probably would have mentioned it.
Okay, so
But if you're marketing it,
I did neglect to mention because actually, until you asked that question, I completely forgot that we did this. I should double check our YouTube channel. I think that I remember last Banned Books Week, we actually asked a bunch of our student workers and some of our library staff, we actually did a little mini virtual readout of our favorite banned books. So
Really?
we basically we recorded ourselves or each other. I can't believe I forgot this. Reading, maybe up to like 5 minutes out of our favorite banned books. So that is the closest thing we've done, and we did do a little bit of a push to encourage our campus to join us, but it was very unsuccessful. I think we've had views on our and like I said, they're up on our YouTube channel, and I probably will just be reposting some of those again this year. But it definitely did not get any participation from our campus at all.
Okay. That's the recording is a good idea too. Holly, have you thought about recording the live actions that you're getting?
I haven't. Well, I've thought of it, but we take such a conservative view on recording things around here. I think I'd have to get everybody's signature. So that would just, I don't know, gum up the works.
Understandable, yeah.
Yeah.
I think the idea of doing the brackets, somehow doing a social media version of the bracket.
Yeah, we did try. I think that was originally our goal, but we couldn't quite figure out how. This is really goofy, and sometimes I get really hung up in the logistical side of things, but we couldn't quite figure out how. I mean, other than maybe like likes on Instagram, we started to get worried about multiple votes and things like, I don't know, which is silly because if they were in person, they could just as easily have voted numerous times. So we just didn't really push that side of it last year, but we should have included something like that.
Yeah.
I just in my head think some public library has done a bracket and used social media for summer reading somehow.
Seems probable. that actually ironically ties into the last question that we had, which was, do you tie this national programming in any way through social media channels or materials that ALA sells?
Pretty much no. I do think this is so terrible. I really should know. I should have known these answers better. I do think our virtual readout last year might have had some kind of tie-in to the National Banned Books Week thing, but no. Generally, we don't use any of the promotional materials directly from official banned books things. We create everything on our own.
Mm-hmm.
We use the ALA graphics on our flyers. That's about it.
I know that we have purchased things, but I don't know what. Can you tell them I'm really on the outside of this one?
It's okay, I'm the one that's organizing mine, and I clearly don't know all the answers.
Well, I found out we had 2 events planned because I was looking at our events calendar. and which is really not a good thing to have happen.
So who is planning them at the library then?
We have recently undergone a reorganization, and so we have an outreach. We have a student outreach committee that is planning them. I'm responsible for faculty outreach, and so it's kind of interesting because one of them is actually a faculty program that I've not been included in any of the discussions on. So I'm new and I'm just letting things happen, and we've also have some reorganization in terms of reporting structure, and so I'm just watching how things happen. So, and the people who are organizing them, I think have a plan. They just aren't used to communicating and planning early. And I'm an early planner, so it's a little different for me. But it seems like things are happening. But we'll find out.
Holly, when you were talking earlier, you mentioned that you thought that this year's banned books theme, I'm going to look it up real quick, was around young adult.
Yeah, that's what I thought I read. I think last year the focus was on comics, and I couldn't figure out a way to read comics at a banned book readout without like holding up the book or something.
So do you plan to tie that into your programming? Like thinking about the national campaign, you're putting the ALA logo on your flyers. Are you thinking of tying that into your programming?
I'm not sure. The books I've chosen in the past to put out there when we do it have been a mix of classic books and young adult books. Just 2 years ago, we finally got a young adult and children's book collection in the library, so it was kind of a good way to advertise that. Although I've noticed the last couple of years when we've done it, the faculty members who come tend to read children's books, and the students who come read these heavy-hitting, classic literature books. I'm not sure why.
Yeah, and I'm asking that too because I'm actually curious from an academic library standpoint. Holly, you'd mentioned that you do National Library Week programming. I do National Library programming, and every year there's a theme. And every year there's the conversation of, do we go with the theme or do we do something that we want to do that fits with our organization? And I can say from my standpoint, we tend to go the latter way and not really focus on the theme, but what works for us and our community at that moment. And I'm curious how the group here kind of handles that sort of like national programming activity or national programming promotion event. We call it National Library Week, but marrying those topics to your organization's activities.
I'd say it's very similar for us. Last year for National Library Week, we didn't use the ALA graphics at all, although what we did was kind of goofy. We put out a poster with the library's history on it and put up a selfie station and let people take their pictures by it. So there wasn't anything very academic about that.
But you did something.
Yeah.
We generally don't do anything academic at all during National Library Week.
Yeah.
I started in February. We didn't do anything. We have recently discovered, though, that the winner of the Melville Dewey Award lives in town, and I happen to know
Cool.
him. He lives down the street from my dad. So we're going to be taking advantage of him at some point.
Yeah, we generally do kind of a weird mix of sometimes following whatever the theme is and not always or only a little bit. I think I know that we're not talking about National Library,
That's
Library
all
Week
right.
so
I play
much.
fast and loose with the rules.
But we did actually, I think, again, I wish I could remember these things better, but I think that last year's National Library Week had or I guess this year's, just last school year's, had something to do with DIY-ish, kind of making things in the library. So we did a whole bunch of programming having to do with kind of DIY type things in the library, and that worked at least.
Okay.
I just pushed out a link to this whole bracket thing has got me fascinated now. It's going to be a time sucker. But one of the SUNY Oneonta posted a whole PowerPoint deck on March Madness brackets for library programs.
Oh, cool.
And they used Google Forms to vote.
Oh,
Interesting.
I like that.
So, but they have a whole explanation of what they did.
Yeah, I'm already opening it so I can look at it later.
And I will save that so we can try and incorporate that into our notes from today's discussion.
And I will save it so I can share it tomorrow.
Stephanie, maybe I'll let you save that so that if you've already got it, it'll go into the graders. So one of the things that we're doing with the roundtables that we've been doing from changing from last year's, we're going to start collecting notes on each of the conversation and put out some of the information that we've collected so that not only you'll learn from this experience, but you'll have the opportunity to learn from all the other roundtables that happen throughout the week and get even more ideas in a one-stop shop. And I don't remember, Stephanie, you remember where they're going to be hosted? Not ALA Connect, maybe the new ALA Connect, I don't know.
I don't remember.
But we'll let you know. You'll find out where it's happening. That's all the discussion points I actually have for today. If anybody has any other things that they kind of wanted to talk about or wanted to see what other people thought about banned books programming.
I'm curious, because I missed a little bit when I was reconnecting. Are any of you doing a display?
No, displays are my weakest point. It's funny, in a different marketing and outreach thing, there's kind of this, I don't know, kind of conversation about like there are those of us who are really good at planning kind of events and things, and then there are those of us that do displays. And I will say displays are my weak point.
We actually got a new piece of furniture, and it's a mobile display stand. And I let one of my new student assistants loose on it for Constitution Week, and I'm so thrilled that that's my new thing, is to just say, here's my topic, somebody want to do it?
Yes.
She's done a great job, and it's been really interesting.
I think actually a student might have put together, so the lobbies where the bracket was up last year, there was part of the week when it was kind of the full number of books that they were voting on, that it took up kind of a shorter wall and then went all the way down a longer wall. And once we got narrowed down to a smaller number of books, the shorter wall was empty. And I had a student do a banned books display, and I will say it was great what she did. So I definitely think letting students do some of that, if that's not your cup of tea, that's a great idea.
We had one exhibit or display area open this fall, and so I could have done one, and then we found out that our fight song, turns out, is 100 years old this fall, so our music librarian's doing that.
Yeah, I always struggle with with displays as well, especially like there's something about just putting a bunch of books out. It's like without some sort of engagement activity that I always kind of struggle with. What the point or impact was like, hey, we have this stuff. Well, okay. So I guess I always have that problem with just displays. I want some sort of like activity involved in it.
I like the idea. Like in my head, I think that a display with the bracket could work really well.
Right. Yes, you put the two together, and then you have an engagement opportunity and the books.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then if it's not the display that's behind, we have our big display cases are behind glass. So in my head, this needs to be on the new mobile display where they can take
it.
Yes, yes.
Exactly.
I did break my student's heart when I said, you are prepared to restock this. And she had the look of shock, like, people are going to touch my display. I'm like, your goal is people to check this stuff out. So, but
Exactly. Well, I want to thank you all for joining our discussion today. I think we all learned a little something. I know I learned a little something. I'm excited. I've got some ideas that we'll actually be able to pull off, not this year, but probably next year. Because, I got to plan in advance. I need to be a little more like Stephanie. I'm a fly by the seat of my pants, do it on the deadline kind of person. So next year I'll take a little planning, but I've really wanted to do something for Banned Books Week. Next month, I double-checked, next month we'll actually be discussing outreach programming during final exams. So, and that's going to be the week of the 12th through the 15th. So we'll be doing 4 of them, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So I hope you join us next week. After we finish up here, I'll be sending out an email with an evaluation survey just so we can get a feel about how people think these are going, so we can improve the online roundtables going forward for yourselves and for everybody else. And thanks again for joining us, and hopefully we'll see you next week, next month, not next week. Don't join us next week. We won't be here.
Okay, bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.